And it's 15 minutes past 1 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. To be precise, is the 25th day of September in the year 2018. Oh, good to be back. You go on holiday and the next thing you know, it's time to come back to work. But I do miss you all. I know you made do with all the stuff that we put out while I was away. And thank you all for choosing Joy 99.7 FM. This is the Executive Lounge with me, Inshira Addo. Glad to be back. So what do we have today? You may have known Coach Joseph de Graft for his acumen and understanding of football and sports analysis in general. But guess what? There's so much more to Coach Joseph de Graft than meets the eye, and we're about to find out more. Today on the Executive Lounge, we're joined by the respected coach and analyst to discuss sports development and, the business of sports and how that impacts on national development. You're welcome to the Executive Lounge. Good afternoon, Coach.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Very well, thank you. And thank you so much for honoring our invitation to join us to have this all-important conversation.
Thank you for inviting me, Ishra.
So, let's jump into this really quickly. Let's learn a little bit about you. I didn't know about you until maybe about 11 or 10 years ago. I saw you on GTV talking football and just dissecting the game. I was like, where's this man from? But at first I thought, okay, this man is some Ghana man who's been living in the UK for a long time, because I could tell from the British accent. So give us a brief. Who is Coach de Graft?
Coach de Graft is a young man who was born in Ghana, went to UK at the age of 6.
Okay.
My coaching actually started at the age of 11.
Wow.
At secondary school, year 1 at secondary school, we had 8 houses. We came last in 8 sports. And I cried every time.
So
I'm a crier.
Wow.
So I decided, following year, year 2, I decided to change it. I organized for variety of sports, hockey, football, basketball, athletics. And we really, for the next 3-4 years, we won all 6 sports Grand Slam for the next 3 years. So that's when it really started. So that's my passion.
That's interesting. So for you, at a very early age, you kind of thought, okay, it's not going right, and I know it can be better.
That's right.
And you rolled your sleeves and just got stuck in.
Exactly. Organized everybody, learned the basics of all the sports. I loved all the sports. That's why a lot of people know me for football, but I love hockey. I love basketball. When the Olympics come, the sport that I watch least is the football. I catch up on all the rest, because that's when you see the best of the world in all the other sports.
That's true. Yep. That's true. Well, that's interesting. So, yeah, go on.
Yes, and then graduated in UK, biochemistry background, applied biology, Bachelor of Science. After that, I just really wanted to do what I enjoyed. You know, Confucius said, find a job you love and you never work another day in your life. So that's what I wanted to do, and sport was it. Right. So about 86, I took a YMCA course, fitness training course, and never looked back. I became self-employed in 87, and since then I ran my own business and decided about 2005, I was coming up and down, Ghana, UK. Now one day I said, no, I'm not going back. And that was it. Wow. And I decided to bring the skills and talents to Ghana from about 2006. That's when I came back. I started coaching Hazakas, Olympics, and then I've been involved in sports ever since.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to plunder your wonderful brain and all the experience that you've gathered over the years. One remarkable thing that you did, and I don't know if the world knows about this yet, is that you revived the in-school, after-school sports training in most of the schools in London.
Yes, exactly.
What prompted that intervention?
What prompted it? I just remembered my background in school. After school, I'd go to school, do all my classes, looking forward to play in the sports after school. 79, politically, the teachers went on strike. Mrs. Thatcher came in. There was a union bust up. They wanted, I think, 6%. She said 3%. They said, right, we'll do it for 3%, but we'll stop the after-school sports. And that, for me, was part of the problem of the youth problems in UK. Children, especially in Newcastle, they started stealing cars and smashing them up because they were bored. And those children would ordinarily have done sports straight after school. By the time they got home, it was dark, time for dinner. They watch a bit of television, do their homework, and they're in bed. But without the sport, straight after school, there was nothing to do.
So social cohesion was enhanced once the kids were able to do sports in school. But in the absence of that, then, devil found work for idle hands.
Exactly. Social cohesion was one of the biggest reasons after World War II that all the European countries stipulated that sports must be participated in schools.
Is that why you find the sport, even if it's half a court of basketball around the corner in every community?
Exactly. It was part of the social cohesion. After World War II, basically, most of the countries in Europe, they were just decimated. So part of the rebuilding program was the inclusion of sport, not just in schools. The governments gave money to help start sports clubs, associations, and so forth. So the general involvement of the population in sport was paramount. Was one of the top priorities on their list.
We have very little time, and for me, the analogy is like having a very juicy fruit with a very tiny container to squeeze a lot out of. So we're going to really get straight into it. Let's look at Ghana. You've been around for about 10 plus years. I'm sure we know what our issues are, but if you would say 3 key things that you think would be our lowest hanging fruits that we ought to start looking at, the gaps we can fill today, what would they be?
Sport is one. The organization of sport. And the most difficult thing in Ghana is the I know syndrome. When you talk to people in Ghana about sport, they say they know, but their actions tell you straightforward that they don't. The bit of history I've just given you gives the background as to the sport in the rest of the world. Now, our history of sport is from Nkrumah, who basically pushed sport as part of the socialist agenda. All the socialist countries, Russians, they were big in sport, still are, because sport is still major importance in Russia. You see, but after Nkrumah, it seems that all the sports, barring football and boxing, have really received barely no attention. And even those 2 sports is because of the monetary gains that people can acquire outside Ghana, that it's worth people investing in them. All the other sports are worth investing in, but all the other sports have just simply dropped by the wayside, barring football and boxing.
Yeah, I mean, I have to be honest, last time I played hockey was in 1991. It was because I was in secondary school. After that, you rarely find people who would say, I want to keep fit, so I'm going to go play hockey. It's easy to find people playing football just to keep fit.
Well, it's facilities. Where would you play your hockey? Whereas football, any waste ground, you can kick a ball around. And some of the pitches that people are playing football on now say, whoa, this is a death trap. But they're negotiating it. But on that death trap that footballers can negotiate, you could never play hockey. You could never play basketball. You definitely couldn't play table tennis or any other sport on there. You just can't. So football is the one that's kept going, mainly because of the facilities available. Boxing as well. In your backyard, in your yard, you can box in your yard. You can set up a boxing gym in your yard very, very easily. But look at all the other sports and see how difficult it is to participate in those sports. If you wanted to play hockey, where would you play it right now?
Wow. Talking about facilities, I mean, we have some and we don't have some. We have land.
Yes.
That at least we do.
That's a good start.
I'd like to, get your thoughts on drawing a parallel between the UK and that's and while I was on holiday, I think what informed the producer and I coming up with this conversation today is because I started making observations that driving across about 5 different states in Europe, one of the things I noticed was that in every community you would find 1 or 2 corners that were purpose-built for young people to go and burn energy.
Yes.
And it was one sport or the other. And then I remembered that in the UK, you have the Sunday football leagues, and these are people who are playing football within the strictures of the FA's organization. So, so Kokomlemle would have its own little FA office. But the people paid to play.
That's right.
But at least the pitches were maintained by the local authority. Where have we gone wrong in that regard?
Right. When I came to Ghana, I was hearing this, the FA are not giving us pitches, they're not doing so-and-so. From the UK, and you've nailed it right on the head. The English FA are not the ones who are responsible for the supplying of the pitches or looking after them. Mm-hmm. That is a governmental local authority. That is their duty. Mm-hmm. The FA is exactly what you just said, is to set up local leagues, all right, where people can participate in football under the FIFA banner, mm-hmm. or the FA banner. And that's what they do. So if there's any disputes or whatever, you go to them, mm-hmm. and they are the governing body. But it's not their job to supply the pitches. Mm. So when I came to Ghana and people said the FA are not supplying pitches, the FA should be... No. It's the local authorities, and it comes from government directive. The directive, because as my right, the government governs the local authorities.
That's right, yeah.
That's right. So the whole thing must come from government directive, as I've just explained in Europe, post World War II, mm-hmm. the government directed that sport is to be put at the top of the list for social improvement.
Okay, let's cross the Atlantic to America. What's the place in your experience of sports in their communities and in their society?
Sport and education are intertwined, inseparable. They are basically so linked that you just can't separate them. What they've got there is that they've got the collegiate system, whereby majority of their top athletes come from the universities and colleges. Basically, in the US, you will find it very, very difficult to be a top athlete, American football, baseball, whatever, unless you come through the collegiate system.
Wow.
The main colleges go through the high schools, and the high schools have links with the primary schools. So it's a continuation. But here's the beauty of the US system. A lot of it is based on participation. So at school, everybody's encouraged to play. So after a time, when people realize, no, I'm not going to be just because you're not going to be a professional basketball player, doesn't mean you stop playing basketball. People still shoot hoops as part of their daily lives. Mm-hmm. And then they'll go and watch the big game for the real professionals to see how they can extend their game. So participation is where it starts. Very, very important indeed.
Wow. I mean, so not only are you creating the people who feed the league and feel, but you're also creating an interest at a very early age, yes, for people to fill their arenas.
Exactly. And socially as well. Whoa. I mean, there are very few social activities that bind or bond people like sport. All different types of sport. For example, France, for instance, what is the biggest sport in France?
Football.
Judo.
Are you kidding?
Judo is the biggest sport in France.
In France?
Judo is the biggest sport in France.
Okay, if this was a what do you know moment, I mean, like, I would have got the buzzer that says, no, you're wrong.
Yes, in fact,
I would have thought that, I mean, the thing, because of the multicultural picture we see
right,
from the France national team,
yes,
I would have guessed it was football.
It's judo.
So it's judo.
Judo is the biggest sport in France. In fact, basketball, handball, judo were all far bigger sports than football. The French government made a step towards football because they said, look, football has a massive economy, but we're missing out on it, and French football was dying. So about 10 years before the 1998 World Cup win, they invested.
Oh, that's when you had Houllier and Co building the academy system that developed the boys.
Exactly. So it was a pre-planned to get football basically to earn France money.
You just landed on something I want us to explore. I mean, so someone decided that
Yes.
we're going to not only dream, but back the dream with resource and the right caliber of people to make it possible. That birthed the first World Cup win in 1998.
Yes.
Where have we gone wrong? Have you seen a sports development document that says Ghana should become the most dominant sporting force in Africa, for example?
Where we've gone wrong is we're talking, but we're not walking the talk. The difficulty I have in Ghana is the I know it factor. You're going to somebody's office and you'll explain your sports project. Oh, yes, we know it. And they will quote the book to you or whatever. But then 10 years later, they've done nothing. So it's the implementation of it that people in Ghana are finding difficult. And part of the problem is that the history that I've just given you, if you don't know that history and you just assume that, oh, the French football clubs just came up by themselves like the Ghana football clubs are expected to. No, they did not. They had help from government. Same way with Italy. Early 90s, why did Serie A become the biggest? Because mafioso activity, politics, and the murdering of judges and so forth was the thing that dominated Italian newspapers. So the Italian government made a decision to basically bring football to the foreground to overtake politics, and that succeeded. All of a sudden, you don't hear so much of the Italian politics. Serie A. The French did the same, won the World Cup, you see. And since then, French football now is creating so much money for the French economy. It's unbelievable. Look at the French, look at all the Premier League clubs. It's full of French players.
True.
And how many of them earn small money?
No.
And how many of them invest all their money here? Nope.
No.
Brexit, all their money is going back. So in Ghana, we have not yet decided that, one, sport is important to us. We haven't decided that. We talk about it, but the decision hasn't been made, because the day that decision is made, that day must be coupled with government policy to basically drive sport. And then don't go and pick people who say, I know. Find the true people who have experience and really know, have lived the sport they're talking, without boasting, people like myself, and let a bunch of people like that, group of people like that, come together and put the policy together. Bureaucrats cannot do it because they don't have that experience. But what's happening is that even when decisions like that are made, bureaucrats then come to the foreground to make those decisions, and they mess it up because they don't actually know. They're trying their best, but they're working from a non-knowledge base,
which wouldn't take us far. It's 34 minutes past 1. This is the Executive Lounge with me, Inshira Addo, and my guest, Coach Joseph de Graft. And we're talking about the fundamentals of sports development, or sports for development, how other nations have prioritized different sports to create not only social cohesion, but also to basically spin the wheels of their economies faster. In terms of the spinning of the wheels of the economies, every government the world over, and today probably being one of the most important times of our lives or as a people, is that everyone knows that we have massive youth unemployment. And this is not just a Ghanaian peculiar to Ghana, it's a global phenomenon. But sports the world over has been proven to spin some good money. I mean, the EPL, for example, is worth more than £12 billion in just TV rights alone. Not to mention the monies that are paid at the gates and the jersey sponsorship and all of the other things that come with it. So that's a lot of money from one sport. Athletics has its own contribution. In fact, while I was on holiday, I think the Golden League was just finishing. I think in Switzerland was the last one, and it got me thinking: why do we have so much talent and yet we let it go to waste? If we really want to create jobs, have we put our foot forward? Should we be planting for food and jobs? Should we be doing youth employment? Should we be doing all of these things when maybe sport could be the lowest hanging fruit? What's your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that is I wouldn't drop any of the others because they're all important.
Right.
I would say inclusive rather than exclusive.
Okay.
Just to come back to one point, I think between 2015, 2016, the Premier League, EPL, actually turned over £55 billion. Billion, not million. No. Don't mix the M with the B. Billions. That's right.
So that's more than the 50 billion, right? So yeah, and a little bit. So,
that's right.
Wow.
Yes.
One sport.
One sport.
EPL.
EPL.
20 football teams.
That's right. That's right.
38 games and everything around it created £55 billion plus.
That's right. Now you see why. Now you see why the Chinese government are intent on getting football kicked off in China.
Of course.
Yes, they're intent on it. Now, our difficulty is that basically, no, you do not drop all the others. You've got to concentrate, but it's got to be a concerted effort, a concerted, structured effort, not mixing up the whole thing with, so-and-so is supposed to do that. So no, this is the policy. We intend to get sport in Ghana kicked off. A question that was asked to me once, I went to a certain gentleman's office just after some people have left. And he said to me, see those people that have just left? They're very good at writing proposals for when their sport is due to travel. But you ask them, within the last 12 months, what sporting activities have they carried out in schools and communities? You get silence. So this is what we need to do. We need to have a proper structured system whereby instead of starting from top down, which is what's happening now, whenever anybody talks about sport in Ghana, they think about supplying funds to the athletes at the top. Please don't stop that. I'm not saying you should stop supplying funds to the athletes. The athletes, they need full support.
That's right.
However, as well as that, a system must be set up whereby right from the grassroots, because I remember having cricket ball or tennis ball throwing competitions at the age of 5. Now, if you can throw, if you're the champion tennis ball thrower at the age of 5, why can you not be a future fast bowler or javelin thrower? Discus, shot put. So those are the things. Start them young. So if we can get a system together which gets coaches into the schools to play. The coach, well, coaching is actually for the guys who are the best and want to move on. But participation is teaching introduction of the sport to those young people. Right. That's what needs to be done. Start from the bottom and build it up. But to do that, you must have the facilities. So hey, say supposing you could have a system whereby you could have facilities in say 5,000 schools all over Ghana. All right, that school basically will have a hard court, multi-use hard court, AstroTurf pitch, and a gymnasium, which has a facility for basically doing aerobics, gym training. Now, why 5,000? 5,000 because the volume helps you to reduce the cost. So we go to sport. That's where sport and fitness and health bond together, and they're all very, very important indeed. Right.
Interesting thoughts. It's 40 minutes past 1, and this is the kind of conversation you want to have and just keep having. I'm in the studio with Coach de Graft, Coach Joseph de Graft, and we're talking about sports, the business of sports, and its impact on national development. Coach was responsible for reviving in-school and after-school sports training in London after it was abandoned in 1979, something that improved social cohesion. Is it something that's still happening today?
That after school?
Yes.
Yes. You see, and now they've got major problems with obesity. That's because a lot of the children basically do not get hardly any exercise whatsoever. And we know what obesity is responsible, or is the background, and is basically causes, or one of the causes of diabetes, heart attack, strokes. So these children are starting their lives in an unhealthy manner, and they're going to continue like that. However, if they could get into the schools, there's a project that's just been started. It's called A Mile a Day. So at the time, the teachers will coordinate the day school during the school day when the children's performance is going down, and the teacher will just say, right, let's go out 15 minutes, and the kids can either walk or jog or run. They can shout, they can run as fast as they want.
Break away from it to do some physical activity.
Exactly. 1 mile a day. Some will do quarter mile at slow pace, some will do half mile, but that 1 mile a day, and they've done the stats on that, and the improvement in the school performance, the children's general health, and the weight started to come down as well. So basically, start them early, get them involved in sports. And then the future is bright. But the facility is very important.
So, Coach, facilities. We live in a country where, we don't have money for a lot of things, including building facilities. But we have schools.
Yes.
The schools all over. If you were to, on a clear, plain canvas, paint a picture of how we probably could kickstart this and even scale it up to 5,000 locations nationwide, how would you go about it?
First thing, you need government support. If you want to do it on a small scale, you can start from the local school itself and municipal authorities. But if you want to do it on a large scale, you need support of the government. Now, the government cannot shirk out of this. If the government really wants sports to flourish in Ghana, and if the government really wants sports-related employment, which we gauge at about 50,000 a year, 250,000 over 5 years, then government support must come in ASAP. Now, the government can say, right, we, the government, will put the money in. But as we hear repeatedly, government does not have money. If government does not have money, government must partner. So if there's PPP, then the government must facilitate the PPP quickly. Sometimes it's taken people 4 years to get a project going with the government. That is far too long. Government must learn to facilitate these facilities within 3 to 6 months. So a department must be set up for that. I think it's unfair to just leave these things just to ministers. I think special departments must be set up to deal with this. So you go into the schools, you're putting facilities in the schools. How is it going to be financed? One of two ways. Government must decide whether the government is going to put the money in, but as we've just said, government says they don't have the money and basically need money from other sources. So then the private have to come in. If the private come in, basically private will still need government support by way of letters or contact with prospective financiers in order to get the project going. And the government must gain something from it. One, the schools will gain the facilities, all right, which are usable for the schools. Two, even better, the employed trainers would also be available to teach the children. Now, in the 10 years I've done a lot of research. I go to schools. I even go to schools, walk around at lunchtime, playtime, to see what is going on the school parks. I even observe teachers when they're supposed to be taking their children. You've got 2 teachers, 100 to 150 children. So what do the teachers do? The teachers are talking to 2 or 3 of the children who don't really want to participate. And the other children are just basically running around, walking around, and within 30, 40 minutes, it's time to go back.
So no one's actually doing any guided, training to spot the, bright sparks.
Exactly. The bright sparks at the moment in Ghana, however many we've got, and we have many serious athletes and sports people, it's purely by accident. It's purely by accident. So if you're producing so many athletes and sports people by accident, just imagine if you really put some structure to it. We're going to be world beaters.
Concerted cultivation.
Thank you. Couldn't have put it better.
I borrowed that from Malcolm Gladwell's Outlier.
Hey, the more heads, the better.
But I think you've set me thinking. If you go back to the French example, and in fact, there's another example that maybe in the next 10 years, we're going to sit back and say, whoa, we saw this coming and didn't think it would be like this. Qatar. Yep. They started their Aspire project. Now they're holding their own in their continental space. Hopefully they can grow that. They're doing very well with athletics. I think currently the guy who's taking 400 meters by storm is running for the Qataris. So you can have a desire, but if you don't have the plan and put the right people in place to make this happen, then you might as well just close shop.
Totally.
But how important is sports? I mean, so we know it's important. We've won the African Cup of Nations a few times. It's made us happy. We've come close to maybe picking up a medal in 100 meters at the Olympics. We've shown some promise in different fields. And yet we have not taking it to the next level. As you're saying, a lot of these people end up there by accident. Are we going to pay dearly for this if we don't correct this thing and have a plan? What kind of future do you see if we carry on the way we are?
If we carry on the way we are still going to produce a few people here and there, but we're going to see people around us, countries around us, going ahead of us. For instance, you've got the Nigerian women's basketball team playing in the
and they're kicking some behind, huh?
I'm telling you. And I'm clapping for them and so well done.
Yeah.
Can we do that? We can't, because we haven't made the concerted effort to do so. Do we not have tall women here? I'm the type of person that I'm walking down the street. I said, that's a good basketball player. I was walking down Circle one day and I saw this woman, strong, looking woman. So I said to her, excuse me, this is not a chat up line, but I'm looking at your physique and I'm saying, do you do any, would you like to be involved in this? She says, I'm a weightlifter.
Wow.
You see, she's one of the Ghana's weightlifting team. So, we're talking and we communicate now. So any future TV programs, I'm going to bring her on. You see, so when I go to stadium as well, sometimes I go to watch them train, and I'll see some guys. I say, "Do you play basketball?" They say, "Yeah, we play every week, X, Y, and Z." But where do they go from here? I saw a guy, he said, yes, I used to play basketball, but I couldn't go any further. Can we create a concerted effort? Has to be made, and it has to come from government. The government cannot run it. Government must basically start it off, light the fuse and let the explosion go off. But like you say, get the right people in place to do it.
Wow, Coach, so this idea of it's been tried before. What do you think has stopped it from seeing the light of day?
Tried before, has it? Within the last 10 years, I have not seen it. Well, then, whatever happened, one, the lack of facilities doesn't help. Two, some of the other sports, I won't call them lesser sports, 'cause they're not.
No, lesser sport.
That's the other sport, basketball, even the cricket. There's cricket league. What they've got to become a lot more business-like from the top. If they're going to come from the top, they've got to become a lot more business-like. Now, no sport ever got to the top without television. Doesn't happen. I mean, I'm looking at 1975, 1980 UK. The only sports on TV was Saturday morning show from 12, then they till 5, and they did the wrestling in the evening, other bits and pieces. And if the football, you got match of the day on a Saturday night, and that was about it. Very little. And then World Cup comes, you get some live games, and that was it. The other sports were not seen. However, the government took a concerted effort, brought in a national lottery. Why did they bring it in? Because they were sick of being losers. The Brits got sick of being losers. They were being trounced by everybody. They'll go to tournaments, they'll come last. They go to Olympics, not one even bronze medal. Or if they got a bronze medal, they celebrate it like they've got gold. So they decided to change it. Hence, what came in was a national lottery to fund it. So they took that concerted effort. Now,
is our national lottery funding sports?
Not as far as I know. So see, not all sizes fit all. So if National Lottery is funding the sports in UK, the French have just adopted a National Lottery to upgrade some of their their monuments all over France. So they said yeah, we took it from UK. It's a very good idea. We're going to take it. Now, if we've got a National Lottery here that's not earning enough money to fund sport, we must find other ways of doing it. Sports, come back to what we said, is big business. Okay, you got 5,000 schools. All right, every evening 100 children in each school pay 1 cedi.
Okay.
All right, how much is that?
5,000.
Exactly. So you're talking about 500,000.
Oh yeah, you're right. 500,000.
Yes,
that's right.
So then you're talking about that's just the football. You're talking about the rental of the pitches. Now these pitches will be available for after school under floodlights, like Lizzie's Sports Centre. People, if we're not sure what we're talking, pop down to Lizzie's Sports Centre and have a look. Our system will be a smaller scale, but it will work on the same fundamental premises because Marcel Desailly lived in France how many years, so that's the model he's brought. You see, so imagine 5,000 schools, 100 children each school. Apart from that 100 children, after dark, the AstroTurf pitches are used by people renting to play the game. Also, you can play tennis under floodlights as well. You can play hockey under floodlights. You can play handball under floodlights for fun. You can have leagues, and if each of those people, if you're talking about 300 to 400 people at each centre, each paying on average of 5 cedis, how much is that?
That is a lot.
Exactly. So when somebody is trying to bring in that sort of system, government must support. Governments must support because government is gaining. Not just in the money that the schools will get.
You have a healthier community.
Health and fitness is massive. Now, they found that Alzheimer's disease has dropped in men in UK by about 50%. I reckon is the prolification of the 5-a-side soccer pitches. You saw
that was all over the place.
All over the place.
Yeah. I mean, it was like it was the alternative to going to the pub for a beer.
Thank you. Yes. So some people they'll still have one beer instead of the 10.
Exactly.
But they've played football as well as have that beer.
Yeah.
So you're going to be healthier. You see, and that's the system that I worked in, and that's the system I worked in UK and want to introduce here. You see, so it's a self-financing system. That's the other system that the government of Ghana could encourage, and it costs the government nothing, but the government gains all.
Lots to learn from this, but very little time, Coach. I'd like to say a big thank you to you. We're almost at the end of our time, but
Wow.
I will grab you for a conversation on TV
Please
so we
do.
can make
Yes,
this
yes.
extend this conversation. But thank you so much, Coach de Graft, Joseph de Graft, sports
Thank you.
analyst.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, I've had a really great time. Tradition on this show is I share 5 things I'm taking away from this conversation. Is number 1 is know-how. Build your capacity to understand the space in which you operate. It helps, and it may come from trying to reverse a situation that's not so pleasant. Like Coach's house wasn't winning, and from second term back at school, he decided that I'm going to start coaching my house so we can start winning. So the need should determine what you do next. And also, the next thing is that have a plan. I'm not talking about having a dream, but have a plan. Have an idea of what you want to achieve, by when, what's required, who can help, and bring those things together and work at it and make it happen. We've seen France win 2 World Cups 20 years apart, but it wasn't by accident. And the number 3 is collaborate. You can't do it alone. If you're in government, you collaborate with private sector. If you're in private sector, you need to collaborate with other people who are like-minded and have the complementary skills to make what you want happen. Number 4, form is just as good as function, if not more importantly. It shouldn't be about people who seem to say they know, but we have to make sure that people we entrust with things to do are people who truly know and have a proven track record. Finally, a stitch in time saves 9. You might think that developing sports for a country like Ghana might create plenty of footballers and athletes and basketball players and all kinds of sports people. But guess what? It actually has the potential to bring down significantly the cost of the national health insurance burden, because generally people will be healthier, happier, and they'll go to the hospital less. Thank you so much, Coach.
Thank you,
Joseph de Graft, for a wonderful conversation.
Sure, thank you for having me.
It's great to be back. I'm going to leave you guys with one song. Drive Time is up after the news with Komla Adum. But this is Kiddies at Diapena.